house of the rising sun.
Yeah, on the road to victory, yeah. On the road to victory, you gotta stand your ground.
UNC.
Don't back down.
On the road to victory, standing strong and we ain't backing down. On the fight up of the school, let's dictate how we're running the island.
Oh
It's time
yeah.
come to mash up the country. Now the people have to push back. So it's time for us to stand firm and show them we ain't taking that.
So stand around, all the people that want the crime. Stand around, the food prices too high. Stand around, and every 2 months pass. Stand around, don't they raise any gas. Stand around,
All across the nation, it's only home invasion.
now we like bed race. Stand around, all the guns in the place. Stand around, so we go back down. 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 This current administration, they don't care about the people. Everything they do in this country, yeah, is to fulfill their ego.
These people raise the gas and they laughing, saying how we ain't right yet.
It's time for we to stand firm and show them right now we are set. So stand around, all the people that want the crime. The food prices is too high. And every 2 months pass. Don't they raise any gas.
All across the nation, it's only home invasion.
Now we like bed race. So the guns in the place. So we go back down. So we go back down. So we go back down. So we go back down.
Oh yeah, on the road to victory, yeah. On the road to victory, you gotta stand your ground. Don't back down.
So we go back down. So we go back down. So we go back down. So we go back down. So we go back down. So we go back down. So we go back down. So we go back down. House of the rising sun.
Yeah, on the road to victory, yeah. On the road to victory, you gotta stand your ground.
UNC.
Don't back down.
On the road to victory, standing strong and we ain't backing down. On the fight up of the school, let's dictate how we're running the island.
Oh
It's time
yeah.
come to mash up the country. Now the people have to push back. So it's time for us to stand firm and show them we ain't taking that.
So stand around, all the people that want the crime. The food prices is too high. And every 2 months pass. Don't they raise any gas.
All across the nation,
You gotta stand your ground.
U.S.
Don't back
On
down.
the road to victory, standing strong, and we ain't backing down. On the fight up of the school, let's take a run in the island.
It's time to mash up the country. Now the people have to push back. So it's time for us to stand firm and show them we ain't taking that.
So stand your ground, and never the crimes. The food price is too high, and every 2 months pass. We don't raise any gas.
All across the nation, it's a whole invasion.
Don't we like the race? And the guns in the place. So we go back down. 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 This current administration, they don't care about the people. Taking it away with the country, yeah, it's a fulfill the ego.
These people raise the gas and they laughing, saying how we ain't right yet.
It's time for me to stand firm and show them right now we are set. So stand your ground, and never the crimes. The food price is too high, and every 2 months pass. We don't raise any gas.
All across the nation, it's a whole invasion.
Don't we like the race? And the guns in the place. So we go back down. So we go back down. So we go back down. So we go back down.
Oh yeah, on the road to victory, yeah, on the road to victory. You gotta stand your ground. Don't back down.
So we go back down. So we go back down. So we go back down. So we go back down. So we go back down. So we go back down. So we go back down. So we go back down. House of the Rising Sun.
On the road to victory, yeah, on the road to victory. You gotta stand your ground.
U.S.
Don't back
On
down.
the road to victory, standing strong, and we ain't backing down. On the fight up of the school, let's take a run in the island.
It's time to mash up the country. Now the people have to push back. So it's time for us to stand firm and show them we ain't taking that.
So stand your ground, and never the crimes. The food price is too high, and every 2 months pass. We don't raise any gas.
All across the nation, it's a whole invasion.
Don't we like the race? And the guns in the place. So we go back down. 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 This current administration, they don't care about the people. Taking it away with the country, yeah, it's a fulfill the ego.
These people raise the gas and they laughing, saying how we ain't right yet.
It's time for me to stand firm and show them right now we are set.
stand your ground.
UNC.
Don't back down.
On the road to victory, standing strong and we ain't backing down. On the fight up of the schoolers dictator running the island.
It's time to mash up the country. Now the people have to push back. So it's time for us to stand firm and show them we ain't taking that.
So stand your ground, and if you're up on the crime, stand your ground. The food prices too high, stand your ground. And every 2 months pass, stand your ground. Don't raise in the ass, stand your ground.
All across the nation,
Stand your ground.
it's on home invasion.
Stand your ground. Now we like been raised, stand your ground. All the guns in the place, stand your ground. So we don't back down, 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 stand your ground. This current administration, they don't care about the people.
No way.
Everything they do in this country here is to fulfill their ego.
These people raise the gas and they laughing, saying how we ain't riot yet.
It's time for we to stand firm and show them right now we upset. So stand your ground, and if you're fed up on the crime, stand your ground. The food price is too high, stand your ground. And every 2 months pass, stand your ground. Don't raise in the gas, stand your ground.
All across the nation,
Stand your ground.
it's only home invasion.
Stand your ground. Now the light been raised, stand your ground. And on the guns in the place, stand your ground. So we don't back down, 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 stand your ground.
Oh yeah, on the road to victory, yeah, on the road to victory, you gotta stand your ground. Don't back down.
So we don't back down, stand your ground. 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 So we don't back down, stand your ground.
There can be no prosperity without food security. There can be no prosperity without energy security.
House of the rising sun.
Yeah, on the road to victory, yeah.
Indeed, there will be no prosperity falling upon Budget 2024 in spite of all the boasting and the glorious promises that have been made by the government side. Indeed, the quality of life and standard of living of our citizens will continue to decrease and not to get better. With respect to economic security, Minister Imbert misled the country in his wind-up. He insisted that the economy grew. Once again, according to Anita, his maths is not mathsing. GDP has decreased by 20% from 2015 to the present day. Unemployment is up. The cost of living is increasingly out of control. From 2015 to now, transport prices have increased by 27%. The price of food in general has escalated by 47%. The price of fish has increased by 26%. Milk, cheese, eggs now cost you 32% more. Bread and cereal prices have risen by 41%. Cooking oil is now a whopping 67% more expensive. Food prices are now 52% higher, with vegetable prices having risen by 61%. Citizens seeking medical care must pay 45% more today than in 2015. The increase in housing costs and rent are also in the double digits. There can be no prosperity, as I say, without food security. Young people are not entering agriculture because they don't want the back-breaking kind of agricultural work that older generations like me grew up doing. We can look at how quickly Ghana is developing an export-oriented agricultural economy with soybean, rice and corn. We are still experimenting. What is UWI doing? What has happened to the Imperial College of Tropical Agriculture? Under my government, we had started to grow onions and potatoes. What has happened to the project? This should be brought back. What has happened to the potential we have for tropical flowers for export? I heard one of the members on the other side saying we made no recommendations for growing new revenue streams. This was something I recommended. We have the potential to put focus on the production of ornamental flowers to export and gain important foreign exchange revenue. The minister says that more local goods meals will be used in the school feeding program. But how many farmers are being incentivized to produce more local meats, hams, sausages, eggs, chicken, fish, and fish farms? The government must sign multi-year contracts with farmers to provide goods to the school feeding program. This is the only way they will be able to access credit and financing from banks to increase production. Again, the agricultural sector has collapsed. Under the PNM, food imports went from $5 billion to $7.3 billion. This is an indictment on the Minister of Agriculture and the government. We need to find out what categories of food have witnessed the highest increases in quantity, or is it really that the increases will be an increase in prices and not in quantity of goods? That will account for the change and not quantities. No prosperity without education security. It is important to reflect briefly on the state of the education system we left in 2015. TNT was at the forefront of the world. We were praised by the UN Secretary General, then Ban Ki-moon, in 2015, for being the first country in the world to achieve universal early childhood education. We were commended by the IADB in Washington and then by US presidential candidate Hillary Clinton for our work in education. We received international global awards for the positioning of Trinidad and Tobago in education as a world leader in ICT in education. We became one of the strongest leadership teams in Latin America and the Caribbean, the GULAC Group, leading alongside Uruguay. We were ahead of the US. President Obama was asking ICT companies in the US to provide about $100 million each so that laptops could be provided for children in underprivileged areas in that country. Russia introduced laptops 1 year later. We were world leaders in ICT education. Within 1 year of the PNM coming into government, most of these successful policies were reversed. They scrapped the laptop program. TNT's education sector has been wrecked by incompetence and mismanagement, a lack of vision, and an absence of appreciation of the modern global dynamics in the sector. This government has severely set back our country's human capital potential. Energy security, I can repeat, there can be no prosperity without energy security. And this is especially so because the government has once again signaled that they are putting all their eggs into the basket, the energy basket. They have provided no new streams of revenue, nothing to create new revenue in the country, and is now, as I say, still relying on the energy sector. The energy sector has collapsed. In the last 8 years, from September 2015 to now, the country's energy sector has experienced a frightening level of contraction as evinced by drastic reductions of 63% in Trinidad and Tobago, 32% in natural gas production, 37% in LNG production, 28% in oil production. Direct jobs in the energy sector have collapsed by 52% from 2015 to present, coming from 22,500 jobs in the energy sector in 2015 to 10,000 being employed now. Rig days have fallen by 63% between 15 and 2022. 34 in the review of the economy 2015 versus the review of the economy 2022. Rig days fall 63%. Our energy sector is solely hanging on because of high global prices. But take away high global prices, this government has eroded the appeal, attraction, and competitive nature of the energy sector. The decline in the energy sector under the PNM has manifested in the scaling down or departure of energy services companies, including Schlumberger, Baker Hughes, and Halliburton, among others. These companies departing Trinidad and Tobago because of a lack of upstream drilling activity. But there can be no prosperity, as I say, above all, at the top of the list. No prosperity without safety and security. Safety and security is the cornerstone of peace of mind, which is a valuable resource. I always say that if you're dead, you cannot have anything else. You cannot enjoy anything else. You cannot have a good house, a good education, or anything if you are dead. That's the reality today. Since 2015, there has been skyrocketing increases in serious crimes, including murders, home invasions, extortions, drive-by shootings, mass shooting, slaying of children, rapes, robberies, you name it, all serious crimes. We have seen now a daily occurrence of decomposing bodies being dumped all across the nation, from the middle of the highways to behind children's schools, just to name a few. Imagine schools are now being dismissed early because of dead bodies being found behind the schools. Long ago, it was because the electricity was gone. Now it's because of dead bodies. Then for such a small country, how can so many people be missing? Every day you see ads on social media, photos in the newspapers of men, women, children, teenagers missing for extended periods of time. How many are never found? People just assume that they just run away from home, but most of these people are never heard from again. Imagine families must live with the uncertainty of not knowing what happened to their loved ones. And now we come to a situation all over the newspapers today, all over every front page newspaper. Guardian, a 7 a.m. ambush. 7 a.m. ambush. This paper talks about prison officer hurt in shootout with gunmen, target outside deputy prison boss home, one suspect held. 7 a.m. ambush, Guardian. Music, attack on deputy prisons chief. Attack on deputy prisons chief. And then Daily Express, excuse me, lawmen under siege. Top cop assures safety a priority after attack. Police Association head urges colleagues to stay on red alert. Lawmen under siege. Daily Express. Every single headline. This is where we have reached. The Prime Minister spent 55 minutes of his precious parliamentary time telling us today nothing. His address was nothing new. We are all accustomed to his empty remarks. In fact, his speech was the most embarrassing speech by a Prime Minister in a budget debate we have ever heard in our history. This man is fighting and attacking everyone in this country beside the criminals. He voiced no empathy for the thousands of families who have lost innocent loved ones in horrible homicides, home invasions, blatant street attacks, and other dastardly crimes. The Prime Minister showed no concern over the impact of crime on business owners, many of whom are shutting down their operations, sending home workers, and seeking to migrate because of growing extortion. He had nothing to say as head of the National Security Council about the brazen attempt on the life of the Deputy Commissioner of Prisons and the implications for law and order. Just yesterday, the gangs in this country attempted to assassinate the Deputy Prisons Commissioner, Sherwin Bruce. Just yesterday, there was an attempted assassination on the Deputy Prisons Commissioner, Sherwin Bruce. The criminals feel so emboldened and empowered in this country that they treated members of the protective services like a rival gang. The blatant attempt to murder senior officers of the protective services indicates that marauding criminals have no fear of the authorities and no respect for the hopeless leadership of the National Security Minister, Fitzgerald Hines, nor of the Prime Minister as head of the National Security Council. The attempt to kill Mr. Bush suggests that organized criminal gangs are emboldened. They feel they could train their high-powered guns at top officers of law enforcement and elude capture. If this is what the members of the protective services are being faced with, what can we say about the average civilian? If the hit was ordered from behind bars, it indicates that prisoners have permitted links with the underworld, including possibly cellular phone contact. The abominable crime comes amid unchecked homicides, home invasions, assaults, robberies, extortions, and other serious offences, so that we have now seen Trinidad and Tobago turn into a zone of civil war. And so where is the intelligence services? The Prime Minister is always quick to tell the country that he is the head of the National Security Council. So I'm asking again, where is the intelligence service? How is it that our intelligence services did not see this coming? Hundreds of millions every year for the SSA, and criminals using the mobile and digital can coordinate an attack without being found. But you don't mind, because the SSA and other arms of our intelligence services are being used to hunt political opponents and not criminals. Look at SRB Kate being paid $45 million to hunt down Mulila, and yet Mulila is standing right here. They wasted taxpayer money on a witch hunt to nowhere. And now on top of the poor intelligence, we have a very low detection rate. Only this week, I believe it was a new state, earlier this week, reported detection rate that only 13% of murderers are ever brought to justice. That is 13% detection rate. So every 100 people who commit a crime, 87 of them go free. From 2018 to now, there have been over 2015 to now, there have been over 4,000 murders. If you use a 13% detection rate to this, it would mean that just about 3,480 murderers have gone unsolved and undetected. Murderers are walking free in this town. And today the Prime Minister asked us, will we be willing to support law that will allow police to put the pictures, publish pictures of people to find out their whereabouts? Their answer to the crime spree is to publish a picture instead of increasing intelligence, instead of increasing enforcement, instead of increasing the detection rate and the conviction rate. So murderers are walking free in this country. The criminals feel bold. I know, yes, Prime Minister, we support it if it is good law. Let us see first what you have in mind. We will not take what is a cat and bag. We will have to see the provisions of whatever piece of law that you have there. Criminals feel bold because there seem to be no consequences for actions. Do as you like, if you want, and nothing will happen because no one is leading the national security fight. Government contracts fueling crime. We have also seen how many murders have been committed because of a war over government contracts. What is the government doing about that? People are being murdered over taxpayer dollars, and government is sitting idly by and allowing this to unfold. Look at this article since 2017, where the Prime Minister admitted Trinidad and Tobago is in a full-blown state of anarchy. Look at that article, and I will continue saying we are now in a full-blown state of anarchy. TNT is in full-blown anarchy, with a complete breakdown of law and order. The witness protection program seems to be non-existent today, despite the Prime Minister's bleatings earlier today about the witness protection program. That needs to be revamped to make people safe to come forward to give evidence. Other nations warn their citizens not to travel to Trinidad and Tobago. The crime horrors cause the developed world to ostracize TNT from non-essential travel, even as the government seeks to portray tourism as a growth industry. The daily bloodletting has placed all law-abiding citizens under siege, has negatively impacted industry and commerce and investment, and is leading to an unprecedented exodus of citizens and assets. The safety and security crisis has made TNT unrecognizable from the modern, progressive, and fast-developing society of mere 8 years ago. Hines must go. Rowley must man up. He is boss. He should take over the Ministry of National Security. And still, Mr. Hines, the most vivid depiction of abject failure in national office remains as Minister of National Security. On behalf of these honourable nationals, I urge the Prime Minister Keith Rowley to dismiss Mr. Hines, and he himself, Mr. Rowley, should assume the position of Minister of National Security. Rowley must man up and show some leadership in this most critical area. All his ministers of national security thus far have failed. And I don't want to hear that as Prime Minister, he can't also be Minister of National Security. Other Prime Ministers have led national security when needed. Well, Prime Minister, as I say, this is time for you to take the lead. I now call further on the Prime Minister. I urge you to work with all stakeholders to discuss effective solutions to the anarchy that is going on in our land. The countless recommendations I made in my contribution to the budget debate will serve as immediate topics for discussion and consensus. I raise the point, I am still yet to receive any response from Prime Minister Rowley on my letter detailing our anti-crime proposals that were sent since 26 September 2023, and some were repeated in my budget contribution last Friday with some additional ones. I await his response on my suggestion that other stakeholders be included with respect to anti-crime flows. I also await his proposals. He had committed to send his proposals, his government's proposals for anti-crime initiatives. He had promised to send that to us before setting an agenda and before having a meeting. I called upon him to send us the proposals that he committed to send us so that we can give consideration. When the Minister of National Security spoke, when the Minister of Finance spoke, there was not one new initiative to fight in the fight against crime. Today, when the Prime Minister spoke, the only initiative I see them say we must publish, allowing police to publish pictures. They can't solve crime, but publish picture, and you'll be able to solve crime. I know every one of us here love our country. This is why I make a call to put this country first. I have always been willing to work with the government to safeguard the people of TNT. This is time for leadership, not excuses. The government step up and stop blaming everyone. The Prime Minister must step up and take on the job of National Security Minister. If you're a man, you are a boss man. Take over the Ministry of National Security. The civil society, business community, and other stakeholders must be allowed to join the crime talks between the government and the opposition. It is time for all of us to step up, and also for the media, because you too will play a role in securing our country. Every one of us has to stop and say enough is enough. This is not the TNT you and I grew up in. Let us make this a nation where everyone can feel safe, not just those of you with personal security. As I say, at this time, despite all the glorious promises, despite all the boasting and shouting in the Parliament today and other days, the government arranges an agenda in such a way for the budget debate that the Prime Minister always has the second to last say. They arrange the debate in such a manner that he always has to speak after everyone else, so no one else will answer him when he stands up to speak. But we will talk to him and about him inside the Parliament and outside of the Parliament. Prime Minister Rowley, I say, there can be no prosperity without safety and security. There can be no prosperity without economic security. There can be no prosperity without food security. There can be no prosperity without energy security. There can be no prosperity without education security. And indeed, every one of these sectors has collapsed. All sectors in our country have collapsed. So there will be no prosperity in the foreseeable future under this government coming out of this budget or anything else that they have said thus far. Again, Prime Minister Rowley, it is time to man up and do your job and take charge of the critical national security ministry. I thank you all. If you have any questions, I can only have some comments as well. I'll take your questions, or should we let him speak first? What would you prefer?
If who's going to speak first, Dr. Munigal?
After, yes. Would you like
come
to
on
speak?
up. Yeah, Dr. Munigal.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, what you got?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Members of the press, the Honourable Political Leader and Leader of the Opposition, colleagues, parliamentary colleagues, members of the national community. This afternoon, in just a few minutes, I wanted to take the opportunity to respond on a matter that was raised in the Parliament yesterday, October 11th, and today on the issue of the Housing Development Corporation and the Ministry of Housing. Yesterday, as you would recall, I raised an issue concerning a development by the name of terrestrial development in the WD area. It was very close to us because during our time in government, 2010-2015, indeed the partnership government, we purchased the tract of lands in that area for the construction of 600 to 700 housing units. And we were on track to begin construction by 2014-2015. Since then, of course, we did keep an eye on that project. What has happened is that the new incoming government of Dr. Rowley, 2015 September, pursued another line and reversed the processes we had in place. And they encouraged other contractors, they encouraged their own friends and financiers and so on to come to the table to build homes and construct housing units in various parts of Trinidad, including Trestrail. Today we are seeing the result of that type of mismanagement, corruption and waste. Yesterday I came to the Parliament and I just wanted to make one point that the opposition leader made. I just wanted to remind members of the national community that when we were in office as a leader of government business, I worked very closely with Prime Minister Persad-Bissessar to manage budget and the debates. And I can tell you in 5 years, the government had 29 members in the House. And we had the opportunity, according to the law, to bring members of the Senate to speak as they do. So we had in excess of 29 members that could speak. They had 12 members in opposition. And sadly, one member was not available all the time, former Prime Minister. It was not present all the time. So they effectively had 11. And we managed the affairs of the Parliament and the debates from the opposition. Mr. Manning, when he was unwell for a period of time, was not present. So they had 11 at times. We managed the budget debate in a way that on the final evening or final day of the debate, the opposition PNM always had one, if not two speakers available to speak. They have managed their business in a way that they go one-on-one with the opposition today. So by yesterday, as you will know, we had already exhausted our speakers, 19 speakers. And they came today like cowards. That's a work of cowards, that they want to speak, but they don't want anybody to speak after. So that nobody can expose their untruths. Nobody can take them to task and call them to account because they can say anything. And I think that is a governance issue that I just wanted to leave there. And it really separates us from PNM in that way. So today they spoke, and I had the displeasure of listening to Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar. And I just want to say first that this is not a matter of personality or malice or anything like that. But Mrs. Robinson-Regis launched some type of attack on myself personally in matters that had absolutely nothing to do with the budget debate and the content of any issue that we were dealing with, and spoke today about a lot of matters. But I really want to speak today to you on this matter. It was the opposition yesterday that brought this report to the Parliament. This is a report on the Trestrail housing, 110 more or less townhouses at Trestrail. We brought the report. So the first point is that the report is authentic. They did not come today and say this report is inaccurate or is wrong or anything. This is authentic. This report is dated August 2022. So over a year they had this report and hid it, kept it secret. It was left to the United National Congress to bring this report to the Parliament yesterday, October 11th. Having smoked them out, the Minister of Housing came today to do some type of cover-up job. And she indicated that yes, it was a report, and proudly announced that it was commissioned by the HDC. The HDC who commissioned it kept it hidden. But they were exposed, of course, yesterday. Never at one time, no time in her presentation, I want to reinforce this point, did the Minister of Housing contradict any statement I made vis-a-vis the findings in the report. At no time did the Minister indicate that the member for Orokuchi, or anybody else, misread the report. We did not read the conclusion properly. What we were saying about the ring beam and retaining walls and floor slabs and loading and so on. Nothing she said suggests that we were wrong, we were right. But then made a few bizarre statements on this matter that raises more questions than answers. First, the minister said, don't worry, we knew of this before. We studied this and we were in touch with the contractor. So the contractor would fix this. This is a very technical report done by an agency that has worked incidentally not only for this government but for former administrations, including our own. They have done consultancy work and so on. And this speaks to specialized type of retrofit refurbishment, and repair, rehabilitation. They're specialized things. When I spoke in the parliament yesterday, and I told you that you had to inject the soil, you had to inject the soil with concrete. That is a specialized type of work. That is not a put in a wheelbarrow and push it today and throwing cement. That is very specialized. The minister is suggesting today that the contractor in question has undertaken to do the repair work. That cannot be. The contractor in question, it is our information, is incapable, does not have the resources, does not have the expertise to undertake this type of sophisticated scientific kind of refurbishment that involve going into walls and so on and putting iron and steel and so on. I said yesterday, the ring beam, most people should know about the ring beam. There's a beam at the top of every house that holds the roof down. They found that in the ceiling there were no steel, so nothing holding down the roof. So if one of the three little pigs pass by, they can huff and puff and throw down the roof. So I raise this matter. That is not a simple job to correct. That is very, very scientific and sophisticated. Technical. And the report also speaks about the possibility of demolition. Because if you cannot inject the soil and do the work on the ground, then it's demolition. So that we cannot depend on Minister Robertson Reggie's conclusion that the contractor will fix it. Yesterday we offered the figure of $100 million. Overnight, persons have contacted us and indicated that that figure is really well below what may be needed to correct 110 townhouses. They are now suggesting that it will be in advance of $100 million. Where will that money come from? It cannot come from the contractor. It has to come from some other source. And that is something we need to keep in mind. I want to also tell you that former chairman Newman George, was the chairman of the HDC. When this matter began in 2017 and went on, he was the chairman. And he presided over this debacle. And as a reward, I think he was made chairman of the construction company of the HDC. So he's back again. Just when you think nothing could go wrong. Mr. Noel Garcia was managing director. He's now at the helm of the HDC. He's back again. And both Mr. Noel Garcia and Mr. Newman George have questions to answer, serious questions, on this debacle called trash trade. This is worse than Las Alturas. It is worse than the mosquito crack. This matter. And Mrs. Robinson Regis cannot dismiss this. I also want to indicate that we have received as well, I had this in my possession yesterday, but there's only so much time you're allowed to speak, so I couldn't raise it yesterday. This is a HDC, a correspondence from the HDC. It is dated the 16th of August 2023. That is recently, a few months ago. It's a response by the HDC to a Freedom of Information application. And this is very interesting. It's a very lengthy response on that particular housing development and the townhouses in question. And I just want to draw your attention to this, where the person requesting it, a citizen and so on, asks the HDC, could you provide information on how many units each zone contains? How many buildings? Remarkably, the HDC said that that information is not available. They don't know how much units and how much buildings there will be at the end of construction, according to the HDC. They say we are not refusing to provide the information. However, we don't have it. We don't have it. We don't know. And then what was curious as well, they gave the cost of this report, but again, I don't want to go into that because these are technical things and there's a cost associated with it. So when people do bad work and you have to investigate, the taxpayer pays for that. So if this report is $200,000, $100,000, $150,000, it's highly technical, it is the taxpayer that pays for that. That is not being paid privately by anyone. And there is a cost to the report. But what was amazing, in terms of when the citizen asks a direct question, question 14 this year, was a cost analysis submitted on what it would cost to retrofit each building unit? Was an assessment done in terms of the remedial works necessary and so on? The HDC admits to date, August 2023, no cost assessment has been completed The HDC intends to have one scoped and priced in the near future. It is expected that the remedial work required for the parts of the development within this work, that will be at a significant cost. So we are talking of millions of dollars that the HDC itself will not know. I can tell you from my investigations that supervisors of the HDC, the employees of the HDC, raised a red flag with this project. Raised a red flag. They were overridden by senior management and by political intervention to allow contractors to continue. They even issued I think Ms. Robinson Regis said it today, they issued a stop notice to a particular contractor. He threw it away and continued to plaster and paint. And there we have it today, this massive debacle. The minister, of course, in responding to me, raised all types of extraneous issues. I don't really want to get into that about myself personally. All I wanted to tell Minister Robinson Regis is, I have one bank account, and I could account for every cent going into that bank account and every cent coming out of the bank account. I know if she can't do that. And no member of the TTPS ever approached me concerning my bank account. Okay? And today I think the minister should be grateful to me for raising this matter. And if the minister believes this is a small matter, I should dismiss it in the parliament, some little corner, a few houses and so on being retrofitted, I challenge her. Why don't you make a tour of this facility and go and walk on the ground floor? And better yet, walk on the upper floor. She could be pumping in the sand. But I challenge the minister, tour that facility with members of the press, not myself, with members of the press. You can get a first-hand view of what has happened here and how hundreds of millions of dollars will be lost in this project. It is something that is very serious. I wanted to tell Minister Robinson Regis as well that calling my name concerning all type of gangster and all these kind of business, these things are years old. They have been repeating this a long time, years and years. I think I'm one of the few members of parliament who actually have a letter from the TTPS stating that I have never been accused or suspect in any matter involving gangs. And when an acting commissioner wrote this, Dr. Rowley wanted him fired. So I will leave it there in case anyone will have a question to ask. But as I said, I shared the view expressed earlier by the opposition leader. The Prime Minister was clueless today. And he has a recurrent thematic, if we notice. Ignore the opposition, ignore the opposition. I think the voters have ignored him in Tobago and in Trinidad. And anyone listening to Imbert, Rowley and Ms. Robinson Regis today would not know that they lost Tobago and they lost Trinidad. And they are indeed a minority. It is the UNC with the majority of voters and support in Trinidad at this time. So I'll leave it here and whatever questions may be.
Mr. Persad, let's start with you.
Thank you. Yes.
Can I, Kishan Hayes, Guardian here. Can I just ask for clarification? Exactly what do you think Dr. Rowley can do differently from Fitzgerald Hines as National Security Minister?
Well, he told us he must continue to live in infinite hope. So we live in hope. I wait, as I say, his proposals. We see what he will bring. The one proposal he brought was to publish pictures of people they want to find the whereabouts of. That's the only thing he's put on the table so far. So what exactly, we've sent him our proposals and we await.
No, but I mean, if you want him to be National Security Minister,
Well,
what do you think the difference would be?
Because he's the leader of the crowd. He's the leader of the group. And as a leader, I would think that he may have something that Mr. Hines doesn't have.
But if he's the head of the National Security Council, wouldn't he already have all of that information and everything else? I just want to know what the end game would be, because
Well,
is it that
go ahead.
the way every national security minister you said has failed, is this just your way of saying he too will fail as a call the election now getting out of office? Is that like the end game?
Well, I hope he doesn't feel. I say we live in hope. He's the leader of the land, and therefore he's the leader of the government, and therefore I would hope that he has more smarts than Fitzgerald Hines, and therefore would come with some new proposals on the table. As Minister of National Security, he would not have had the same hands-on intervention and leadership of the security forces. He would be on the policy end as National Security chair. and therefore he has the ministry directly in his hands, then he has a command of that ministry and will also have an indirect command of all the ministries to have a whole of government approach in the fight against crime. He would be better able to drive that if he's able and capable and willing.
He gave his assurance in his budget presentation that he is still willing to meet. He still wants to have that meeting with you and everyone else. So we're okay with that. So this is still on once the standing finance is done in 2 or 3 days. The government and the opposition still stand ready to meet to discuss crime.
We are ready, willing and able. We have always been ready, willing and able. However, the Prime Minister promised in his letter to me that before we meet, he would send his proposals. Today is what? 13th or 12th of October. I responded to him since the 28th, I believe, of September, 26th of September, and to date, no response, no proposals, except what we heard in the budget, nothing new from national security, nothing new from finance, and today the one new thing was secrecy or being able to publish photographs. So we are willing and able to meet, but the commitment that was given is we will show me yours and we show me mine and show you yours. We did show us, and then put out more in my budget speech and others, and still not a response. So I think the Prime Minister is flying out this weekend to Canada. I think thereafter he told us today in Parliament he's flying off to London. So we await his reply. Yes, we are willing and able, but we will not do that until you keep your commitment and your promise to send your proposals, so we will have sight of them to determine the agenda. And secondly, I have asked them to respond to what we suggested that other stakeholders be involved. Again, no response whatsoever about that. We sit here in the Parliament, opposition, government, back and forth. We need other stakeholders involved. This is too critical and too important. So I have awaited responses on those 2 matters. And obviously nothing is going to happen as he goes off to Canada this week. And then I don't know when he's going to.
So you think he's sort of saying yes, but reneging by...
Well, he's already reneged, or at least delayed, thus far in sending the promise that he made, that he will send his proposals. You send yours, which I did, and he will send his. To date, nothing. Except his repeat, yes, we will meet. So, we see.
Following up, you held up the Guardian, the front page of the Guardian shows a cache of weapons, arms, and all of that. Anything you want to say to the TTPS who would have made this huge find yesterday?
We congratulate the TTPS. My point again is we see these caches of guns, all these guns, and we see all the marijuana. Nobody's arrested.
What was it?
No one is arrested, so great, I'm happy. Oh, you want me to hold up?
No, they held somebody.
No, do it.
They held one person. They held one person.
Yes, but this happens all the time. Where the persons are arrested, again come back to detection. When are they prosecuted? Where is the conviction? Conviction rate is so low, abysmally low. Detection rate is abysmally low. So yes, stabbing TTP has a great fine. But go the next step, please. Not just with this, but with the marijuana you found and so on. Large stash. Large amounts of marijuana.
You made you were talking about the cell phones in the prison. The prisons commissioner said that he believes that this happened because they were finally, after all these years, implementing the jammers, and that was a retaliation. How do you propose they balance that? Because when they don't do it, they get attacked. They do it, they get attacked. How do you balance that? Yeah.
Well, we are speculating, are we not? But that is the course. Because they were implemented finally after 8 years, the grabbers and jammers and the prisons. To comment on that, I can't say. We don't know. We don't know what was the reason. And recently there was an intelligence report published in one of the newspapers about the concerted attacks on law enforcement, where the police were reporting in their intelligence reports that there were concerted efforts on attacks. And those, not just now for businessmen, but for just officers generally. So to blame it on implementing jammers and grabbers, I do not believe that is reason. The country has become so lawless under the PNM because the criminals are not facing the consequences of their dastardly actions in the country. The government throws up its hands in the air and blames everybody else and will not come up with any proper anti-crime measures to fight the criminals. The criminals feel emboldened and empowered because they get away. I told you the election rate just a short while ago. 13%, meaning 87% walk free. Walking free in this land.
But that's for my question to you. But one question for Dr. Mulila.
Sure. Is anybody else to me so that we can ask any other one personal questions? But thank you, Keisha. I
have a one-on-one with you in a while.
You're welcome. We must meet again. Thank you very much, Dr. Mulila.
Just one question for you, Dr. Mulila. Given that your government would have, when you were in government, would have issued a commission of inquiry into Las Alturas, do you think there should be another one into terrestrial, or are we satisfied with the HTC's response so far?
Well, yesterday in the Parliament, in the debate, I did indicate that what is required is an independent inquiry or investigation. That is not necessarily a commission of inquiry. But it should be independent of the HTC and the Ministry of Housing, because the same players who presided over this catastrophe in 2017, 18, 19, 20 have returned. They have returned in another form. So clearly the HTC and the Ministry of Housing cannot undertake an inquiry or investigation by themselves. It must be independent, external to the Housing Ministry and the HTC.
Himself.
They would be investigating their own role. And I can tell you from our investigation, I am being told that both Minister Garcia and Mr. Newman George are very concerned about this development and the questions that will be posed to them. So we cannot depend on them to investigate this matter at all. I'm also being told that there are issues involving other government ministers, where some of these projects have been financed by a company linked to the brother of a government cabinet minister. So that there's a tangled web. And I believe there must be an independent inquiry given that development.
Now, understanding how these things go, let's look back at the last commission of inquiry where there were so many issues raised and everybody, the opposition really raised questions about whether everybody was independent. If the government does do this, will the opposition support it in terms of not trying to malign the characters of the players, or you know how it's
No, but it depends.
yes, how is it that they can?
It depends on whom.
Yeah.
We cannot answer that today. Again, as when he asked us, we support this as a piece of law. I said we have to see it. The devil is in the details. So in the same way, if they set up this inquiry, as for instance, MP Mulila is speaking, we have to see who the persons are. So suppose they put back Garcia.
To be famous,
Or they put back the other one, Mr. Newman George. You know, so you have to take it day by day and see whom you would appoint.
Yes, so yeah, I mean, you could leave it to the Prime Minister. You might find somebody by the 9th hole or something and ask them to go and do that. So it's not as a question that you really shouldn't, presume and be speculating on. Yeah. Anything else?
That's it for me.
Thank you all.